I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Well, over the past several weeks on these Tuesday shows, we've been talking with and hanging out with artists near and far, talking about the world of art, the world of opportunity, the world of vision, the world of creativity, talking about the genius of our people, Black men and women who are in the world of art. We want to continue on that path for the next several weeks, but I want to start today a little different, maybe do two different things and bring them into the same conversation. My daughter, Batala McFarlane, who is the publisher of our newspaper, Insight News, was on a television interview yesterday that I thought was quite good. She was talking about a project that she leads with a physician, cardiologist, Dr. Courtney Bickler, and the project is called Heart to Heart. It's a discussion, a podcast about heart health, and they are particularly building on the work that Insight News has been doing for years, creating awareness of the disparities that Black people experience in health access, health outcomes, but also pointing to solutions, to solution makers from within our culture and within our community. Well, I want to start today's program by sharing what I thought was a wonderful interview that KSCP did yesterday. So we'll listen to that, and it's just a few minutes, but after that, we'll come back. And I see my colleague and friend Charles Caldwell is here. We'll jump into our conversation about art and about the world. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. I'll remind you, you know what? If you're listening, check us out online. We appreciate you wherever you are, but we want to grow our online presence. So if you are checking us out on YouTube, subscribe to this channel. If you're checking us out on Facebook, hit like and share. We are presenting not only through our channels here in Minnesota, but on a national basis through Black Press USA, the websites and YouTube channel of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We thank them for that. We're going to be also engaging a new platform. It's called Narrative, which is a space being built to talk about solutions that Black people can provide for Black people. I'll tell you about that in the future. Let's check out Batala and her colleague, Dr. Courtney.
Today is the last day of the month. February is known as Heart Health Month, but it's something that we really need to keep in our minds all year long.
So two women are making it a mission to make sure that we do just that. And they are focusing on ensuring heart health outcomes will improve for the Black and Brown communities here in Minnesota.
Joining us in studio are Batala McFarlane and Courtney Jordan Beckler. Ladies, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks so much for having us.
So you just launched this new podcast. It's called Heart to Heart Conversations. What are people going to hear? What are you going to be discussing?
Go ahead. Right on. Thank you. Well, yeah, folks are going to be hearing from people they may know. And they're going to be hearing stories that may be familiar to them. They're going to hear information about how to be mindful of your health and what you can do to improve your heart health, your overall health, and just really good, relatable conversations. We're really excited to be doing this.
So in particular, we tease this. You guys are talking about Mary Morris, a 90-year-old from Eagan, and she's got a pretty unique story to tell. What's that all about?
Miss Mary Morris is an amazing woman. So she really has chosen her entire life as a nurse first, and then throughout her entire life, really putting her health as the forefront going forward. And she ultimately needed to have an aortic valve replacement that she had done at the Minneapolis Heart Institute here in town. She takes us on her journey of how she advocated for herself, how she picked the interventional cardiologist, Dr. Mario Gessel, that was ultimately going to do her procedure, and where she decided to have it. And I think hearing from a person of color about their journey and what can be a really complicated situation is just amazing to hear.
I think that as we were talking about kind of how this all started, it really started organically? I mean, you guys initially were on Facebook kind of having a conversation about heart health, and kind of walk me through the process of the beginnings of that to the desire and the thought, you know what, maybe we need a podcast. Maybe there's more to this.
Absolutely. This podcast is part of a larger project that Courtney is a cardiologist with the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation, and our family, we publish a community newspaper, Insight News. And so we've been working, like before the pandemic, trying to develop some new strategies of how we can improve health disparities in communities of color. So, there's a lot of focus on health equity. So we've had lots of individual conversations, just the two of us, conversations with friends, with neighbors, with business colleagues. And one day we had a really nice Facebook conversation with my dad, my boss, who's living with heart disease. He is AFib, and the day that we discovered was just like, as you can imagine, you learn that your dad has heart disease and you're devastated. But then after the emotion and the fear, he's like, but if I do these things, I'll be okay. And he is okay. Okay. And so we had that conversation on Facebook, really good feedback. Folks were like, yes, we need to hear more. We need to hear more. And so here we are. And we're just really excited, again, to be working together, to be connecting with different people in community who have beautiful stories. I think too often we hear about the problems. And while we must be aware, we still have to celebrate the successes. So that's why we're excited to be bringing these conversations to a podcast platform that you prefer.
So I was interested in this particular statistic. Minnesota has had some of the best heart health outcomes since 1999 for the white population. But you ladies are talking specifically about the brown and black community here. And why is that disparity there?
I think it's a great question. What we know is we've made little to no improvement in these outcomes. So we know a big part of that is systemic racism. A big part of that is access. It's how people feel trusted or lack thereof, being dismissed. And again, what I would emphasize about this podcast is this is meant to be solutions today in 2022, despite what we hear about homicide, about COVID this year. The number one thing that people of color will die from prematurely compared to their white counterparts in Minnesota is heart disease. Wow. So we feel strongly that we need an action-oriented approach that helps put the solutions in the strength of the individual, which we've talked about. We know that there's a ton of asset in the Black and brown community.
Well, I love the idea of your podcast kind of walking people through the medical system. It can be so complicated and so overwhelming for someone.
And also the internet is not always the best source of
That's
information.
right. So to be able to have these honest conversations with you two who have the experience, but also patients who maybe have the experience too. I mean, to settle on that is something that's going to be part of your podcast, and a big part of it, I think, is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, one of our guests, Miss Diane, she talks about how, like, her journey with managing her blood pressure. And when she gets around her girlfriends and she's advising them, like, what, you don't have a blood pressure cuff. Like, these are the things that you can be doing outside of the office, in addition to, being mindful of your diet and getting more physical activity. But something that seems kind of maybe minor, of getting a blood pressure cuff, can be very helpful to managing your blood pressure. So those little nuggets are sprinkled throughout the conversations. They're fun. We think we're funny, so we've got a little bit of humor there.
I saw you guys during the commercial break. I think you probably are pretty funny.
Yeah.
You guys are pretty chill right now.
We are, but that's the point. Talking about heart disease, like I said, can be frightening, can be uncomfortable, but I think when people are able to have that, like, connection with somebody they're familiar with, have a relationship with the physician like Dr. Courtney, the outcomes, that's one of the ways that we can improve outcomes.
Having that conversation, I think, not just during the month of February for the year, but having it all year long, and hearing you guys and knowing that conversation is something that's happening all the time, I think is really key. So Batala, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us. Much success with your podcast. It's called Heart to Heart Conversations. It is available on demand, and we have posted a link for you on MinnesotaLive.com.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. That was pretty cool. That was my daughter, Batala, and her colleague, her friend, Dr. Courtney Jordan Beckler, and they've got a wonderful initiative. It's part of our Insight to Health Fitness Challenge, and it's a part of a new project that Batala is leading called I Heal. I Heal stands for Insight Health Equity Action Lab. And their premise is to support and to do um, action-oriented or actionable research in the Black community that's reported back out to our community, where we have a sense of equity ownership, both in the configuration, the ideation, and certainly in the outcomes, and creating outcomes that can be acted upon to deal with and support the health priorities of our community. Well, let me continue the conversation. Again, thank you for joining us. I see my friend Charles Caldwell, the artist himself, is here. Brother Charles, how you doing, man? Good to see you again.
Hey, I'm doing good, Al. It's good to see you again. Had a few rough, bumpy weeks there the past few weeks, but it's good to be back in front of you and the audience.
Well, you know, we're unscripted as always. You want to talk about it? Bumpy weeks. I'm the journalist. I'm always curious. And if you don't, it's okay. You know, it could be personal and private. You know.
Right, just some personal stuff and some family stuff, and it always seemed to fall on that time. And scheduling appointments is, you know, stuff to get an appointment scheduled. Everything's 2 or 3 months out when you're dealing with the medical industry right now. So, but we're here today, and I noticed that you kind of caught onto the handle of the artist himself. So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about it. So for people who are listening on the radio, I'm looking at my colleague, my friend, I call him my brother, Charles Caldwell. We're connected by something like Zoom. It's called StreamYard, because we're having this conversation not only on the radio, but we're having it on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And so all of you now are familiar with how the Zoom meetings take place, and everybody has their name on their under their window. Mine says Al McFarlane, and I list Al at insightnews.com because I want people to reach out to me. And Charles, I noticed today, said C. Caldwell, the artist himself. I love that. Talk about it.
Okay, I certainly appreciate it. I'd like to thank Mrs. Caldwell, who set that up for me today. So I appreciate that. You know, I've been an artist since I was a kid. And so when I was a young artist, exhibiting at 14, out in public and standing and representing my works. And I was a little guy at the time. It was people that were coming and enjoying the works that were displayed, and they were finding it difficult to believe that such a young person had created had such maturity and professionalism represented in the work that they was experiencing. So I had to kind of plead with them and go, I'm the artist himself. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of stuck with me. I started signing my work, signing my name signature on my pieces that way, C. Caldwell, the artist himself. And so that kind of grew with me over the years. I don't use it as much these days as I did in my earlier years, but there was a real treat to have Mrs. Caldwell put that up there for me today.
It's a wonderful brand. You know, it's a wonderful branding because you don't forget it. You know,
I really appreciate it. It's been around for a while, so I'm going to kind of recultivate that into my travels and my work processes.
Well, you know, I wanted to take time, Brother Charles, and just talk. I love talking to artists about the creative process, how you get into doing the art. I love talking about family stories, family histories, and I love talking about how what's happening in the world today impacts your life day by day, and impacts how you see, how you paint, how you draw, how you sing if you're a singer, how you dance if you're a dancer, affects your creativity and what you do. And so, and then, you know, I always say, start these conversations by asking my guests, you know, what's on your mind? So let me start with that, Charles Caldwell. What's on your mind today as an artist, as a resident of Minneapolis, as a citizen? What's on your mind? What are you thinking deeply about right now?
Man, that's a good question. And I'm really in deep thought about the arts. As you know, I do some mural art, and I'm so looking forward to the weather changes that's taking place right now, because
Mhm.
I've got about 3 projects lined up, outside projects that I'm going to be working on here in the spring. I got 2 mural projects that's going to be additional murals on the 4th Street Saloon building, which is where the Welcome to North Minneapolis mural is right now.
Mhm.
And so I've got 2 murals going on that building, one on the front street facing Wendy's on the Broadway
Mhm.
south
Mhm.
side of the building, and then one on the back end of the building. And so I'm working on those subject matters and getting that in preparation, as well as working on some commission works, some portraits and things that I have on my table right now. In fact, one of those pieces are a piece of yours
Yep.
that we talked about, and
Mhm.
we'll save some of those details. But
Well, I can share a couple of. I've asked you to do 2 pieces for me. One is I wanted you to do a portrait of my wife, Bobby McFarlane. Now, I haven't told her. She might or might not be listening right now, but
that's why I was holding back.
yeah, but it's okay. But I wanted to do just a portrait of her, which could be the centerpiece of our house or our home, and then I wanted you to do a portrait, a commissioned work of me and Bobby together. And there was a picture, that photograph that we took some years ago, but it captured the connection, and so I've put that in your hands as well, and I'm excited to have the chance to ask you to do these commissioned works for me. And, it's good to talk about it because there's probably somebody else out there that is looking for an artist to do portraits or commissioned work. And we want to make sure that they know how to reach you and other members of our group that have been meeting here every week on Tuesday talking about art. Yeah.
Yes. Well, those. So that's what's on my mind right now is just the whole creative process heavily. I just completed a couple in the past week or so here, and just it's so gratifying as an artist as we look over the past 2 years how much the world has been transparent in the ugliness of
Mhm.
things that's been going on in our world and in our society. It's hard to get to the beauty of things because it just seems like there's layer after layer. We've got the war going on here with Russia and Ukraine,
Mhm.
and so it's my inspiration is from the positive things that are going on. I try to take the negative and clean it up and find a positive space in it, because that arena is well provided on attacking our hearts, our minds, and our souls. And so, as an artist, I'm trying to. I've been struggling and in battle and protecting myself on what inspires me and what I take in as inspiration. It's like the portraits. I love doing portraits. I really love knowing the subject matters as I create, because I capture the heart and the soul and the connection that I make with it, a piece of artwork. Because when I sit down at my drawing table, workstation, and I have a clear blank canvas or a blank piece of paper, and I'm visualizing and connecting with an image that I see in my mind that I want to have manifest in front of me
Mhm.
as I take each pencil stroke, well, if I'm doing graphite, or each brush stroke if I'm doing painting. So it's been a real struggle, but when I get to the beauty of that, out of that struggle, it's a gratifying feeling. So I just completed a couple portraits that are just beautiful and reflect everything that I wanted them to reflect. And so I'm quite happy about that. Matter of fact, I'm quite amazed by that, because it really has been, a lot of grieving processes that we've all been going through, whether
Sure.
it's a family member, a friend, or just a valuable community member. This grieving process has just been like a chain. And so there's a lot of links in it. And so I'm as a creative person, you know, creativity comes from within and in that within space, and you want to project it in your outer space. And so the more you got to get through to get to that outer space makes a big difference. I know when I was younger, I can look at my earlier works and look at the details in them. And I can think about the time that I sat down and created some of those works on what my life was like at those times. And I could see the struggle in today's work because my life has gotten a lot more crowded and a lot more complicated. And so the distance from the thought process of creativity and the completed process of creativity, there's a big gap between getting it from your mind down your arm through your fingertips and conveying that message on your surface. It's like being a musician, you know, or a piano player, is to feel those keys on your fingertips and hear that music with your ears, but you know that you first got to put it together in your mind and your fingertips as you contact those keys, and then the sound comes. So there's some layers of processes that take place in that. And so I've been a creative person. I just don't take it for granted. I was working on a piece the other day, and I was just excited on the steadiness of my hand, or the clarity of my vision. And at those moments, I thought, wow, if I get to the stage of being shaky with my nerves being uncontrolled, I won't be able to be as perfected of an artist as I am right now. And so I realized that, you know, it isn't just that I'm creating something for myself or someone or the world. It's the moment and the health that I'm able to do it in that space at that time. As my vision has changed over the years, and so I use readers now, but it just hit my mind that, man, when you think this thing is crispy and clear in your mind and in your sight, when somebody else looks at it,
whoa,
it's going to look completely different. And so artists, there's a time and a space, just like athletes. You're only great in your youth and in your early years, but you know, the laws of gravity and laws of the land takes over it. And you're not able to do the things the way that you used to do them. And that applies, I'm realizing how that applies to me as an artist. So I don't take for granted this time right now that I take on commissions, or I tell someone that, you know, yes, I'll take this time and create something for you, because it's some extremely valuable time right now. There may come a time in the near future or the far future that I'm not able to do it, or not able to create it in that way. I just really have been, those are the things that have been impacting my mind as of late.
As you're talking, I'm remembering, I think, an interview I did years and years ago with Ray Charles. I think it was Ray Charles. If it wasn't him, it might have been Bobby Rush. It was one of the great ones. Hold it. Pardon me, I'm sneezing. Wow. But one of the great ones. And he was saying how he worked so hard in a performance, right? He would just put energy into his stage performance. That was his event. Everything, training, you know, practice, the band, organizing, the lighting, the promotion, all of that came to this point. And the point was the performance, right, with the live audience.
Yes.
And he said he, you know, used to just work almost without stop, getting to the point of perfection. So I said, well, you know, he was like maybe if it was Ray Charles, he might have been 60, 70 years old at this time. And he said, you know what, but now I can get to that point without all the work that I used to do. So my skill level has improved, and my knowledge and awareness of my capability has become so sharp that I can go from, if the goal is get from A to Z, and it might have taken, a factor of 9 to get there in the past, now I can get there in 2 because I'm not unfamiliar with these processes, and I can compress them at some level. He didn't say those words, but that's the feeling I get. So I'm trying to put what you just told me into that memory of talking to a performance artist, and how over time your skill level increases because you've done this more. But you have to also, you're saying, weigh that against the gravity of age and time, because those things have another impact or effect on your ability. Am I getting that right? Yeah.
Exactly. That is it in a nutshell. And it's like right now, I can be walking down the street and my brain can say, man, take off and run down there to that corner in like 2 minutes. But my body and my brain are not on the same plane
right
as it used to be. And I watch, I can watch my little grandkids, a little kid fall over and bounce right back up.
Yep.
Or just fall down, and it's just that easy. It's like, wow, you got to consider those things in your work, in your craft, in your preparation process. And like you say, over time, you don't have to prepare as hard and as long. When I used to get ready for an art show, I want everything to be just right. I want to make sure I've got everything and try to have every piece with me and try to have every presentation presented properly. And then when you get to the show, half of the things that you did in the preparation process don't become a part of the show. And so each time you get close, each time you do a show, and each time you get to the experience or the skill level, you realize that there's certain things that you don't have to get overly excited about. And there's certain things that you don't have to be aggressive in the process of getting to the stage, because the stage is there. And once the curtains open up, it's showtime. So I've grown to understand that and relax a little bit more. It's been a great experience with my daughter. Last weekend, she did a show and she was just rattled and all over the place. And I just kind of talked to her in those tones and to calm her down a little bit and just let her know, in 1 hour, this showtime, and where we're at right now, we're in a good place. And so we're going to be good when the show starts, and anything that isn't right or taken care of or done, unless you make it, bring it to the attention, nobody knows but you and I. So some things,
Yeah, I've got to plug in the power supply. Keep talking while I do this. Go ahead and just tell that story.
Yeah. So it was just a great experience in the end, that she had calmed down, and we were still happy and communicating positively at the end of the day. So, through your experiences and through your skills, that does speed up the process of the way that you do things. And I am certainly, when I sit down to create a piece of art now, it's a little more relaxed, but it's that fear of what's going to be the end result is always prevalent, and it's always there. You can see what it looks like, but to actually get to a finished point where you say, this is what I was seeing in my mind, and this is what I want in my completion, and be able to put your tool down and say, I'm done. It's done. I can let it go. I've gotten stronger in those areas.
Does the piece talk to you? I was telling somebody, I was writing a story a few days ago, and I use it as a cover story. It's a story I wrote about the brothers that purchased the Thor building on Plymouth and Penn.
Yes.
You know Alfred Babington Johnson and
Yes.
David McGee, two lion-hearted, great brothers in the community.
Yes, they
And
are.
I was excited to do an interview with them on this show, I believe, and to write the story. My process is that interviews like this, I get them transcribed, and I go through the transcripts and reduce them down either to a news story or a Q&A. And in this case, I was doing a Q&A, and they were saying after they read the story that they thought it was pretty strong, a good presentation, a good representation of what they said in the interview. And what I told them was that, as I'm writing, the story talks to me. And the headline for the story, I can't remember what it was right now, but it like jumped off the page. And so I'm in an interactive mode with my creative, activity, where not only am I doing it, but I'm paying attention to what the creation is doing. And it's almost as if the creation has its own volition, its own energy. And my job is simply to be aware of it, to be sensitive to it, to be attuned to it, and to acknowledge it. And if I am awake, aware, conscious, I will not only be doing what I do, my part of it, but it's not just me. I'm a part of this process, but the act of creation is something that, has more than just me. That's what I think. I don't know if that makes sense to you at all, if that applies to you as a creator artist.
It makes total sense. And I did read the article. I did pick up that newspaper. I was very excited that those gentlemen were able to accomplish that for us in our community. And I felt empowered by that. And your article and your presentation was awesome. It was amazing. So you did whatever you set out to do, if I can say so. You accomplished it from my perspective. And I'm sure that you'll hear that from many others that shared in that experience, and only you could bring it the way that you brought it to us. So I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah. I you've done this before with me, but I want to do it again because it's always worthwhile. Talking about, what poured into you. Talk about the Caldwell lineage again. And how the art gift is part of your genealogy. I'm so impressed that when I interviewed your daughter and I interviewed Mrs. Caldwell, your wife, that you all are just overflowing with creativity and with this vision and submission. It's like the family business is art. And it's and I know that you've got your son is a phenomenal artist, and one of the best pictures that I love is the one I've seen of your grandson holding some paintbrushes. I mean, that's how you talk about what the future is going to be. This image I saw, he must have been 7 or 8 years old, or maybe he was 6 or 5, I'm not sure, but he was a young kid, but he was holding a set of brushes with absolute confidence in holding the world in his hands, and the world was something he was going to paint. So his possession of those tools was a reflection of his possession of the capacity to create, to visualize, and present a universe that reflected his sensibility, his legacy, and a future that he would be the author of. That's how I see it. So your family is like that, doing that kind of stuff, and I'm so impressed.
Yeah, you got me just fluttered here, man. Flooded here with that extreme compliment. And as you're talking and speaking, it just touches my soul, because I think back to where it all began for me, and being a little country boy from Arkansas, and my mother making the brave decision to move her family to Minnesota. And I was 6 when I left Arkansas, and I have no creative artistry memories from that journey. But once I arrived here in Minnesota, we moved straight to North Minneapolis, 1970. That was my birthday, and I turned 7. It was in September. And it was just an awesome, amazing experience. Started school and got involved in art classes and just creative people. You had art. Art was important in school when I was a kid. And it allowed me some avenues and some windows to look through and avenues to go down that were exciting to me. And I was naturally drawn to it. And I had some natural creative ability. And it was cultivated and nurtured by all my teachers and the community, and the way they embraced and loved it. And it gave me some power and some confidence to feel like I could do something that could allow me to take care of myself and even grow into the place that I'm today, of allowing me to be able to take care of my family. I've inspired my children, as you've mentioned, to where they've taken on the creative process to be supportive and bring things to the community and to the world and to their friends and to their children. So it has become certainly generational. It's in the bloodline. It's in the atmosphere. It's in our DNA, in our breathing.
So talk about your parents, your parents, and were there other artists upstream from you?
No.
Okay.
And so that's the thing is, it wasn't that I was inspired or nurtured by a family member or someone that carried me and interested me in art. It just became an instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a place that I gravitated to in my life. My buddies, when I was growing up as a kid, I ran the streets and hung out at night and and watched the stars and the moon and all of that. And then when it was time to go home, everybody went in their own directions. And I'd end up with a piece of artwork or a body of artwork at some point in time. And all my buddies would say, well, man, when did you do this stuff? You was with us.
Mm-hmm.
But I made the sacrifice of sleep and did my creating early in the morning or late in the day.
Mm-hmm.
When I was home or when I was in the classroom, I spent that extra time. My art teachers would keep me after school and take me to the art store or, to school art supplies. And they kept me nurtured and kept me cultivated and kept me with the things that I needed to do better. They provided me with tools and access. And so now it's like, my granddaughter was in a restaurant on Laurie and Penn, the Laurie Cafe. It's probably about 7-8 years ago. And I had some work on display and I had about 10 pieces in there. And she didn't know that the exhibit was there, the work was there. And she was with her family, maybe about 6 or 7 family members. And she said, she looked up and she said, wow, she said, Charles Caldwell. She just stood up and said, she said, Charles Caldwell, this is my grandfather. I am Zaria Caldwell. This is me. And she just was so proud of that. And the waitress was so touched by that and overwhelmed by it that she was just like, wow. She said, she said, I see the proudness and the joy that you have in this moment. And I want to do something. I want to participate in it. So I want to take your check. And this was about 8 people, probably about an $80, $90 bill. And she took that check and said, I want to take care of this bill. I just want to be a part of what you just displayed and the love and the appreciation and the pride of yourself. And she shared that when the next time I was there, that waitress shared that story with me. And so it was just awesome to know that I had touched my little granddaughter that way to give her something that she could be proud of.
How old was she at the time? How old was she?
She was maybe about 10 or
Okay.
11.
Mm-hmm.
And she is 17 now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were having dinner last week, Al, and she had one of her friends over
Mm-hmm.
and joining us for dinner. And I was telling them that story and talking about it. And her friend said, well, we were just at High V the other day, and she did the exact same thing. And so it was just awesome to know that what you're doing is affecting not just your community and your family, but your generations to come. And so it was just a proud moment for me again.
Mm-hmm.
And it also keeps me in check. Is to make sure that I'm accepting the greatness that I present, and I'm able to be proud of it and proud of myself, because that's what I want the person that comes in contact with what I leave behind to feel.
That's a good feeling, so I'm relating on the granddad aspect, because I have the best feeling in the world if one of my grandkids will be somewhere and see my newspaper on the news rack and say, that's my grandpa's, newspaper, and they feel proud about it and they acknowledge it. That's a good feeling. It's really a good feeling.
It's an amazing feeling, Al, because it gives them confirmation. They can hear what you say all day long, but when they're out in public and they hear somebody else addressing it or being proud of it, they realize that, wow, this is something. Yeah. Now, this story here, I have a nephew that was, I'm a father of the family. I raise all the kids. And when they're in my space, they're in the presence of a fatherly figure, whether I'm their cousin, whether I'm their uncle, whether I'm their neighbor, friend, whatever. I'm assure them that you are in the presence of a fatherly figure. So my expectations are fatherly expectations, because I want you to know that this is a place that we can grow, and there's growth that I'm going to give you in it. But one of my young men was spent some time incarcerated and struggled with me growing up, because I was real firm and real committed to what I expected out of him. And he took some wrong turns and went in some wrong directions. But when he went and he was incarcerated, and he found out that there was other young men in that environment that he was in that knew me personally and had spent some time in my life, and they told him and gave him confirmation. And basically, he sat back and listened to the communication and the conversations that were going on. Because when you're in those kind of dark places, you try to reach what the good things that have happened in your life and your good experiences. And so my name came up in several experiences and out of several people. And he just came and said, he said, Uncle, I didn't really realize how important you were in my life. And I realized now that everything that you did and said to me was for the good. And I resisted a lot of that and struggled with a lot of that, because I thought it was just something that was unique for you and me. And he said he realized that. And so, and a lot of that came from me being an artist. And these young men know me publicly as an artist and works. And so they relied on that to give them some strength to get through the dark places that they were in. And they were able to have conversations and like people. It's like yourself, Mr. Al McFarlane and Insight News. People know about you. Young people know about you. And so when they know something about good people like you and I that have made sacrifices and are trying to do the thing best we can do to make things better, it comes, we may not see it right at the time that we're delivering the message, but the message is out there. Yeah. And it's being used. It's being everything that we put in it for the growth of others is being used that way. And it's being received that way. So art has allowed me to just show myself in so many ways. And just, it's been the richness of my life. I tell people all the time, if I could just do this art and just give it all away, I would do that. But unfortunately, we are structured to where we got to make a living.
Yeah,
we
sure.
have obligation and responsibility. So therefore, then we have to encourage people, our community, our friends, our associates and families to be supportive of it, and monetarily, because the bottom line is monetarily is what's going to get you to the next step. It's going to help you get your supplies. It's going to help you get a peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be creative when your mind is so disrupted.
And when you don't know what's tomorrow, what tomorrow's going to bring,
right?
It's hard to focus on creativity.
Yeah, but you, Al, I can tell you, I know we got so much going on in our lives, and we got so many things that we want to do together.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly we get to do some spurts of some things, and then we kind of get a little spread in it. But I want to close that gap because I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the platform and the door opening that you allowed me to stand in. And I just appreciate the support that you've given me over the years as a client, as a friend, as a brother, as a community member, as a businessman. I mean, I support and appreciate everything that you stand for and the things that you're doing. And I appreciate you allowing me in as you've allowed others. And I really wanted to be on this show with you today because I didn't want the gaps to start spreading in this area, because it's a great opportunity for us to share our stories, to share our thoughts, and inspire and continue to be inspirational.
Here's what I know, Brother Charles. I know it's important that Charles Caldwell and Al McFarlane have a conversation like this right now, and that we simply need to be intentional and persistent and consistent in having these conversations that we're sharing with hundreds of thousands of others across the radio waves and across social media, digital platforms. I think that us having unscripted conversations is important, because what we're doing in this conversation, we're also creating the historic record. We're capturing your feelings, my feelings, our thoughts, our observations of how the world looks right now, and how what we see right now is a culmination of all that has existed to flow into this moment, and how what we see right now and the steps we make based on the knowledge of the moment are steps that in and of themselves, the unfolding of the future. What is the future but right now, right? Right now is the future. And I think if we are conscious of that, we are intentional, and we need to continue to shift and elevate the conversation in and among us as men, as Black men, as human beings, so that our conversations are always enriching, that our conversations quicken the creative spirit in and among us, so that we move with energy into our promise and into our potential, into our knowledge of ourselves and into our mission. And I think that you and I both operate with a sense of mission. We're on a mission, and our objective is to be true to the mission, to not fail, to give the assignment every bit, every ounce of our energy, and to do that and hope that what our best is will be seen, as worthy of being given the opportunity to be here. So it's not taking it for granted. You said that already. We don't take ourselves and our situations and our circumstances for granted. We know that this is work that we're doing, but we feel good about it, and we feel grateful, I think, for the opportunity to be in the arena. I told somebody, Charles, just over the years of being a business owner, I can't tell you the number of times that I thought today was the last day for Insight News and McFarlane Media. Either, no sales or no collections or no money or too
Ooh.
many bills or payroll or taxes or the light bill or the gas bill or the printer bill. I
Ooh.
mean, so it's been that struggle, and that struggle has been difficult being in business for me. It may not be for other people, but I can tell you that for me and my family, being a business owner and having this vision and this desire to be in business has been difficult. And I'm
Yes.
saying difficult slowly to give the emphasis on how hard it's been, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. And I'm speaking also with a sense of gratitude. I'm glad that I had a chance to be put to the test, and I'm glad that I'm still standing. So I say two things. One is, and this is advice to somebody listening. I'm not sure who it is. Somebody will appreciate the story, because everybody goes through these days of can I make it? Will I make it? Is the bottom going to fall out? And I observed over the years that I get to my very, very, very wits end. Like I said, this will be the day that it's going to be all over. As often as not, more often than not, when I reach my last thought, my last shred of hope, Bobby Ford McFarlane, came up with a word, a thought, idea, something that turned everything around. So I have to continue to give praise and thanks to my wife and life partner, Bobby Ford, for always bringing the missing ingredient, whatever it is that was insufficient in me, the completion she holds. And with that, we were able to survive and continue forward. And then there have been times, Charles, where in my mind's eye, it's like you up against the wall, and you get pushed and you get pushed and you get pushed, and you're kind of being corralled and herded in a certain direction, but it's
Yep.
all towards your demise. You're walking toward and through the shadow of the valley of death, as they say, right? Death Valley. Or I visualized it as walking towards a plank and then being goaded by somebody. The somebody is not a person, but it's all the circumstances, all the
Yeah.
challenges of
Oh, yeah.
business and of life and the community. And then so you're being pushed, and inch by inch, you're trying to keep a brave face and look at, what's troubling you and what you're trying to do, but you're backing up and you're backing up and you're backing up an inch at a time and a quarter inch at a time. And finally, there's no more space to back up. It's off the cliff, off the board. And you say, today is a good day to die. And you step off knowing that it's over. And to your surprise, the ground raises up underneath you.
Right there.
And what you thought was certain demise turns into a new opportunity, a new way.
Ooh.
And so the first time that happened, you say, man, this is I'm glad, I'm lucky. Then it happens again. And it happens again. So it becomes a growth process, because every time it happens, you're stepping up into a new arena of activity, a new level of business. You're transforming. And so then towards, you say, look, when you step into a new room, you say, where's the cliff? Where's the edge? And you look at it and you say, let's go. And you run and you run and you run, and then you leap and you jump. And that's kind of the lesson that somebody listening today is going to feel good about. But the lesson from my point of view is about believing and learning and trusting the experience and knowing that the skill that you've acquired over the years is purposeful, meaningful, and that the gift that you have is a gift that is intentional, and you have to be intentional about using it and deploying it, trusting it, and trusting that it will guide you through circumstance and situation that even seems impossible. But the lesson you learn is, why do the possible? Everybody's doing that. Show me the impossible. That's where I want to be. So that's my story today. And that's what talking to you inspires me to talk about, Brother Charles, about us both being creative. Let me finish the program, because I started talking about what's on our mind today. You mentioned the war in Russia and Ukraine, and I've been talking about that. So I asked Black people, what is it to us? What does it mean to us? Is there something in our experiences? I call myself an African in the New World. I'm an African man who is also an American, who's also a Jamaican, who's also of Cuban parentage. All these things can happen in me at the same time. So I'm not just one thing, I'm many things. So the question becomes then, what does Ukraine and Russia, what does that conflict mean for us? Are you thinking about that at all? Is it on your mind?
You know, I'm not. I'm watching, and I'm acknowledging, but in this time, I'm trying to cultivate some. I'm trying to disconnect a little bit to get into the space that I'm headed into. As like I said, I got some mural projects that's coming in the spring, and I got some other creative processes that I'm trying to get to and be attentive to in my mind, and that's on my drawing table. But it's what's so interesting to me about this is the position of Putin and how our previous president had such a relationship with him, a private relationship with him, that my concern is just what would this situation be like if he was still president? Because he was so supportive of Putin, and Putin had almost seemed like he had as much power with America than he does in Russia. And so I got some conflicts going on. You know, the action he has made, the action and attack that's taken place, but I'm just kind of complicated in my mind as I've been thinking each encounter and interaction that the previous president had with him for this man. And I just feel like this has just been a plan, and somewhere down the line, because we ended up with a new president, that plan got disrupted a little bit. And so what's being done right now, I think he moved forward with his plans, and the world is dealing with it right now.
Listen, we're out of time. Listen, this is a great conversation. Thank you for having with me my friend Charles Caldwell. Charles Caldwell, the artist himself. Brother Charles, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. I'd like to talk. I'm going to talk to you afterwards.
Okay, call me up. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll see you this time next week.